What happens when Hollywood's toughest action star meets television's most arrogant host and refuses to play by the rules? You're about to witness the most explosive late-night television meltdown ever captured on camera. Before we dive into this incredible confrontation, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about live television. Chuck Norris walked onto the Late Show stage that evening with the same quiet confidence that had made him a legend. The audience erupted in applause as he approached Stephen Colbert's desk, his boots clicking against the polished floor with military precision. Colbert, wearing his trademark smirk, gestured for Chuck to take a seat. "Chuck Norris, everybody," Colbert announced, his voice dripping with barely concealed condescension. "The man who supposedly does push-ups by pushing the earth down. Tell me, Chuck, do you ever get tired of these ridiculous internet jokes about your supposed superhuman abilities?" Chuck settled into his chair, his steel blue eyes never leaving Colbert's face. "Stephen, I've been in this business long enough to know the difference between humor and mockery. Which category are you aiming for tonight?" The audience laughed, nervously, sensing the tension already building between the two men. Colbert leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying what he perceived as an easy target. "Oh, come on, Chuck. You can't tell me you take any of those memes seriously." Chuck Norris doesn't sleep, he waits. Chuck Norris counted to infinity twice. "I mean, it's all pretty silly, isn't it?" "What's silly?" Chuck replied, his voice remaining calm but carrying an edge that made several audience members shift uncomfortably. "Is a talk show host who thinks he can belittle his guests for cheap. Laughs. I've spent decades building a career based on discipline, respect, and hard work. Those memes, as you call them, represent something deeper than you seem to understand." Colbert's smile faltered for just a moment before returning full force. "Deeper? Really? We're talking about internet jokes that claim you can slam a revolving door. How exactly is that deep, Chuck?" "Because they represent the idea that with enough dedication and respect for your craft, you can achieve things that seem impossible to others. Every young person who sees those memes might be inspired to push themselves harder, to believe in their own potential. But I suppose that concept is foreign to someone who makes a living tearing others down." The audience fell silent. This wasn't going according to Colbert's usual script. His guests were supposed to laugh along with his jokes, not challenge his entire approach to comedy. "Tearing others down?" Colbert's voice rose slightly. "I'm a comedian, Chuck. Comedy is about finding the absurd in everyday life. If you can't handle a little joke about your tough guy image, maybe you're not as tough as everyone thinks." Chuck's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "There's a difference between comedy and cruelty, Stephen. Real comedians punch up, not down. They find humor in life's complexities without diminishing the people around them. What you're doing right now isn't comedy. It's bullying with a television budget." "Bullying?" Colbert laughed, but the sound was harsh and forced. "You're sitting on one of the most prestigious talk shows in America, being treated like the celebrity. You are, and you're calling it bullying? Maybe the problem isn't my questions, Chuck. Maybe the problem is that you can't handle being treated like everyone else instead of some mythical figure." "Everyone else?" Chuck's voice remained steady, but there was steel beneath the surface. "Is this how you treat all your guests, Stephen? With disrespect disguised as wit? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've confused cynicism with intelligence." The tension in the studio was palpable now. Camera operators exchanged glances, unsure whether to keep rolling. Colbert's staff watched from the wings, recognizing that their boss was losing control of the interview. "You know what, Chuck?" Colbert leaned forward, his pretense of friendly banter completely abandoned. "Maybe the real joke is that you actually believe your own hype. You've been playing tough guys for so long that you think you actually are one. But sitting here right now, you just look like an aging action star who can't take a joke." The audience gasped audibly. Several people in the front row looked genuinely shocked at Colbert's sudden viciousness. Chuck sat perfectly still for a long moment, his hands resting calmly on his knees. "Stephen," he said finally, his voice carrying a quiet authority that seemed to fill the entire studio, "I've faced down armed criminals, trained with the best martial artists in the world, and built a career spanning 5 decades. I didn't do any of that for recognition or fame. I did it because I believe in standing up for what's right, in protecting people who can't protect themselves, and in treating others with the respect they deserve." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "What you're doing right. Now, using your platform to try to humiliate a guest who came here in good faith, that's not comedy. That's cowardice. And if you think my age or your position gives you the right to treat me like some washed-up has-been, you're about to learn exactly how wrong you are." Colbert's face had gone pale, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. "Are you threatening me, Chuck? On my own show? Because that would be really stupid, even for someone who thinks roundhouse kicks solve problems." Chuck stood up slowly, his movement fluid and controlled. The audience held their breath as he looked down at Colbert, who suddenly seemed very small behind his desk. "I don't threaten people, Stephen. I don't need to." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Chuck remained standing, his presence commanding the entire studio's attention. Colbert tried to maintain his composure, but beads of sweat had formed on his forehead under the hot studio lights. "Sit down, Chuck," Colbert said, attempting to regain control of his show. "You're making this weird for everyone." "Weird?" Chuck's eyebrows raised slightly. "What's weird is watching a grown man abuse his position to attack someone who's done nothing. But answer his questions honestly. You want to know what's really weird, Stephen? It's that you seem to think your audience enjoys watching you be cruel." He gestured toward the crowd, many of whom were nodding in agreement. "Look at their faces. They came here to be entertained, not to watch you have a meltdown because your guest won't play along with your mean-spirited routine." Colbert's eyes darted to the audience, and what he saw clearly rattled him. Instead of the supportive faces he was used to, he found expressions of disappointment and concern. Some people were actually shaking their heads at him. "My mean-spirited routine?" Colbert's voice cracked slightly. "I'm doing the same show I do every night. If you can't handle a little roasting, maybe you shouldn't have agreed to come on." "A little roasting?" Chuck's voice remained calm, but his words cut deep. "Stephen, there's a difference between playful teasing and what you're doing. You've been trying to tear me down from the moment I sat in this chair. The question I have is why? What did I ever do to you?" The question caught Colbert off guard. He stammered for a moment before responding. "You didn't do anything to me personally, Chuck. This is just how the show works. We have fun with our guests." "Fun?" Chuck gestured to the uncomfortable audience. "Does this look like fun to you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're using your platform to work out some personal issues at my expense." "Personal issues?" Colbert's defensive wall was crumbling, and his true colors were showing through. "You know what, Chuck? You're right. I do have personal issues with people like you. Action stars who pretend to be heroes while the real world burns around us. You make movies about fighting bad guys while actual bad guys run our country." The political turn caught everyone off guard. Chuck's expression didn't change, but his voice carried a new intensity. "People like me? Stephen, you don't know anything about me. You don't know what I've done outside of Hollywood, what charities I support, what causes I fight for. You've decided to hate me based on a character I play in movies, and now you're using your show to justify that hatred. I'm not using my show for anything except comedy," Colbert shot back, but his argument sounded weak even to his own ears. "Comedy?" Chuck shook his head. "There's nothing funny about what you're doing. You're a bully with a microphone, and you're so used to people laughing at your victims that you've convinced yourself it's entertainment." The accusation hit home. Colbert's face flushed red, and his carefully constructed television persona completely evaporated. You know what, Chuck? You're absolutely right. I am a bully. And you know why? Because bullies like you deserve to be taken down a peg. You walk around acting like some kind of American hero, but you're just another privileged celebrity who thinks his fame makes him special. The audience was stunned into silence. Several people in the front row looked genuinely disturbed by their host's outburst. Chuck, however, remained completely composed. Privileged celebrity? Chuck's voice carried a hint of amusement now. Stephen, I grew up dirt poor in Oklahoma. My father abandoned our family when I was young. I worked my way through every achievement in my life, from my first martial arts tournament to my first movie role. I've never asked for special treatment, and I've never used my fame to hurt anyone. He paused, looking directly into Colbert's eyes. But you? You sit behind this desk every night, protected by your staff and your network, taking shots at people who can't fight back. You've built your entire career on being cruel to others and calling it comedy. So tell me, Stephen, who's really the privileged one here? Colbert's hands were shaking now. The tables had completely turned, and he was being exposed in front of his own audience. You don't know what you're talking about, he said weakly. I fight for justice. I hold powerful people accountable. By mocking internet memes about a martial artist? Chuck's tone was almost pitying now. Stephen, if you really wanted to fight for justice, you'd use your platform to build people up, not tear them down. You'd inspire your audience to be better, not teach them that cruelty is acceptable as long as it gets a laugh. Don't lecture me about my own show, Colbert snapped, his composure completely gone. You're just a washed-up action star who can't handle criticism. Criticism? Chuck stepped closer to the desk. Is that what you call this? Because it looks to me like you're having a public breakdown because your guest refused to be your punching you bag. The security staff was getting nervous, but they weren't sure whether to intervene. Chuck wasn't being threatening, but the situation was clearly escalating beyond anything they'd seen before. You know what? Colbert stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward. I don't have to sit here and take this from you. This is my show, and if you don't like how I run it, you can leave. Chuck nodded slowly. You're right, Stephen. It is your show. And the way you're running it right now is showing everyone exactly who you really are. The cameras captured every moment as the two men faced each other across the desk, the tension so thick it was almost visible. The studio fell into an eerie silence as the two men stared each other down. Chuck's calm demeanor stood in stark contrast to Colbert's visible agitation. The audience watched in fascination and horror as their beloved late-night host continued. His meltdown. You think you're so much better than me, Colbert said, his voice trembling with rage. Standing there with your self-righteous attitude, acting like you're some kind of moral authority. But I see right through you, Chuck. You're just another aging celebrity desperately clinging to relevance. Chuck's response was measured and deliberate. Stephen, I'm not trying to be better than anyone. I'm simply trying to be decent. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. Decent? Colbert laughed bitterly. You want to talk about decent? How decent is it to build a career on violence? How decent is it to teach kids that problems are solved with fists and kicks? More decent than teaching them that cruelty is entertainment, Chuck replied without hesitation. At least my movies have clear heroes and villains. Your show seems to specialize in turning everyone into a villain just for your amusement. The observation struck home. Colbert's face contorted with fury as he realized his own audience was witnessing his complete professional breakdown. You know what, Chuck? You're right about one thing. I am cruel, and I'm about to show you just how cruel I can be. Colbert turned to his production staff. Get him out of here. I want him off my stage right now. The security guards hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Chuck hadn't done anything to warrant removal except defend himself against an increasingly unhinged host. On what grounds? Chuck asked calmly. I haven't threatened anyone. I haven't used profanity. I haven't even raised my voice. I've simply refused to let you bully me on national television. The grounds are that this is my show and I want you gone, Colbert snarled. I don't need a reason beyond that. Chuck nodded slowly, a sad smile crossing his face. And there it is, folks. The real Stephen Colbert. When he can't break you down with insults, when he can't make you dance to his tune, he simply has you removed. This is what passes for comedy in his world. The audience was stunned. Many were openly expressing their disapproval of their host's behavior. Some were even standing up, clearly disgusted by what they were witnessing. "Security! I said get him out of here!" Colbert shouted, his voice cracking. "Now!" The security guards reluctantly moved toward Chuck, who held up his hands in a peaceful gesture. "It's all right, gentlemen. I'll leave voluntarily. I wouldn't want to make your jobs any harder than Mr. Colbert already has." As Chuck began walking toward the stage exit, he turned back to address the audience directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that this isn't how television should work. You deserve better than a host who thinks cruelty is comedy. You deserve entertainment that lifts you up, not programming that teaches you to tear others down." "Shut up and get out," Colbert screamed, completely abandoning any pretense of professionalism. "You're done. You're finished. Security, escort. Him out now." Chuck paused at the edge of the stage, looking directly into the camera. "Stephen, I genuinely hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. But I hope you find it without having to destroy other people along the way. The world has enough hatred already. Maybe try adding some kindness instead." I said, "Shut up." Colbert was now visibly shaking with rage. "Cut the cameras! Cut them now!" But the cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment of the host's complete meltdown. Chuck gave a small nod to the audience, many of whom were applauding him despite the chaos. "Thank you all for your time tonight. Remember, respect is earned, not demanded. And dignity is something that can never be taken from you, only given away." As Chuck walked off the stage with quiet dignity, Colbert continued his tirade behind him. "Don't you dare try to make me look like the bad guy here. You came on my show, you disrespected me, and now you're trying to play the victim. This is exactly the kind of self-righteous garbage I can't stand." The audience was in open revolt now. Boos and jeers filled the studio as people began walking out in disgust. Some were shouting their disapproval at Colbert, while others were calling out support for Chuck. "Where are you going?" Colbert yelled at his departing audience. "This is still my show. I'm still your host." But his words fell on deaf ears as more and more people filed out of the studio, their faces showing a mixture of disappointment and disgust. The cameras captured it all, the empty seats serving as a silent testimony to the complete failure of Colbert's approach. As Chuck disappeared through the stage door, he could still hear Colbert ranting behind him, his voice echoing in the increasingly empty studio. The security guards who had escorted him out looked embarrassed and apologetic. "Sorry about that, Mr. Norris," one of them said quietly. "We've never seen anything like that before." Chuck simply nodded. "Neither have I, son. Neither have I." The aftermath was swift and brutal. Within hours, clips of the confrontation were circulating across social media with overwhelming support for Chuck and harsh criticism of Colbert's behavior. The late-night landscape had been forever changed by one man's refusal to be bullied and another man's spectacular public breakdown. So there you have it, the most shocking late-night television moment ever captured on camera. Chuck Norris, kicked off Stephen Colbert's show not for being disruptive, but for refusing to be a victim. What did you think of Chuck's handling of this situation? Drop a comment below and let me know if you think he did the right thing, and don't forget to subscribe. For more incredible stories like this one,